I'm thinking of making a decision that is probably that might cancel my earlier communication.
Well,
We had agreed that we want to end this series today, and probably what we have, discussed this morning would have probably brought us to the end of this series. But one of the things that is coming out very clearly is that there are still questions that are not addressed, students' concerns. And maybe because we do not have time now, it is only proper that we probably ask one or two of our mentors to probably in our next meeting next week to have some of these questions addressed. I think that might be, might help the students. I want to again go back to these questions, and I think somebody should be able to write them so that we see how we can address them next week. We have a question that when you use a theory to guide your study in qualitative research, would you refer to that as a deductive or inductive approach? This question, a number of people have attempted to address it. And when I scroll down, you find the student thinking that's even getting more confused. And we wouldn't want a situation where the student remains in that confusion. We want such issues ironed out, and the students should be able to progress. Number two is David Wasike is saying, is it possible for someone to use more than one research strategy in a single study? Shed more light on that. I think this has also not been addressed, and I want to invite our mentors. Probably next week, we would want to give you some time to address this. Tushave is saying more light on research philosophies. Is constructivism the same as interpretivism? Ronald and I think Jeremiah attempted to address this, and I think the student is still having issues with that. The other issue, Linda, is mixed method the same as multi-method? Kindly throw more light. And I think this one probably, I think Patrick from Kenya has just addressed that. And good enough, I think somebody has taken record of these questions, and I want to request that, Charles, if you have that, could you load it on the chat? The questions from the students, could you load it on the chat so that the mentors will be able to look at them and give us answers next week? There's a student here who is also asking me a question that I think we can. Okay, I think I will address this one. Madam Livia is saying, I think time series data falls under longitudinal data collection. Yes, I certainly agree with you. So Charles, kindly share with us these questions on the chat, and then we should be able to ask our mentors to address them next week. I'm really very, very sorry. My apologies for eating into the next time session. Kindly forgive us, and without taking any more minutes, allow me hand over this mic to my senior brother, colleague, and mentor, Dr. Ahmad Walgembe. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Charles. Good morning, colleagues. Charles, am I clear that side? Joseph?
Yes, we can hear you, though the volume is a little low, but we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the session, and we appreciate your work and effort. Thank you very much. I don't know what to say about the unanswered questions in the students' the 3 a.m. platform, but I think they will be answered at the right time. Feedback will be provided over that. So allow me to welcome you to the second session of today's discussion. We, as usual, would like to appreciate the commitment of the students community, especially those who log on even before 3 a.m. and those who have been able to participate in the discussions actively. Thank you very much for supporting one another and also being able to make contributions to the different research discussions. Secondly, also allow me appreciate our mentors on the platform who have been able to join and be with us this morning. Professor Joseph Muntai, thank you for being part of these discussions, and thank you for the platform. Dr. Goret Chayune, Professor Kagari, thank you very much for being part of these sessions and for supporting the students. Dr. Id Sebasa Alidwa, thank you for joining this morning, and many others. Hopefully, we shall be able to appreciate a lot of things in the course of our discussion. Today's morning, we have one of our students who is going to present her work, and we listen to her carefully. We give the comments. I think at this level we have so many students who actually can be able to really give very constructive comments. So, Sister Betty Namalwa, please start sharing your screen. You are our presenter of the day, presenting her proposal. As she's doing that, allow me welcome all students from the different corners who have been able to be part of the platform. Those from the universities locally here and those from universities abroad, we appreciate. The East African community, as we normally say, that this is currently now an international platform, so it gives us the chance to get ideas from here and there. Possibly, allow me really, we may need to get a formal way of responding to the questions, and I think we shall be able to comment over that. Mr. Namala, can you please put your presentation, can you put your presentation in a better mode?
Doctor, I don't know. Is that one enough?
I don't know. Are you using your laptop or your phone?
No, I'm using a phone.
That is kind of a challenge, because you don't have the laptop with you?
I have, but it was somehow not. I think it's software. Doctor, is it not seen? I thought it can be done that side.
Seen. Okay, let me try to help you this side, because I think I have received it. Give me 1 minute. Can you unshare?
I think what you can do, let her possibly upload it on the chat room, then I share it for her.
on the side.
Prof, she has forwarded it to me. Let me forward it to you now.
Or maybe you share if you have it.
Let me share. She has forwarded it to me. I have it. I don't know if that is the better view. The PowerPoints are in PDF.
Doctor, it is seen.
Members, is that a better view of our presentation?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. Mr. Namalo, you can present.
Thank you so much, mentors, and dear my fellow students. The topic is management support practices and teachers' job performance in private secondary schools in central Uganda. And here it is as a result of the problem of the low job performance of teachers, most especially these days in private schools, whereby since the government is promising them high salaries, and even they are looking for avenues in government schools, majority have tried to neglect their work in the private institutions. And me as a researcher, I saw that this is likely to affect the education system. That's why I came up with such a topic. Doctor, the next slide. Yes, from there, I looked at the background. That is chapter 1, where we have introduction. And in the background here, I'm looking at the historical background and even other background, majorly to see how the problem has evolved over time, because it is not new. It has been there for some good time. So the background to the study, the beginning of the 20th century brought new concerns about management practices in organizations to increase job productivity. Management began looking at methods to improve efficiency and job performance of employees. Frederick W. Taylor of the Muddy Valley Steel Company recognized in the early 1880s the need for labor and management cooperation through management practices to increase employee job performance, and that is found in Morgan 2016, Chan 2013, Omiv and Plush 2012, Taylor 1996. And towards the end of the 21st century, Frederick W. Taylor, an American mechanical engineer, became interested in improving the efficiency of individual workers. This interest, which stemmed from his own experiences in manufacturing plants, eventually led to development of scientific management practices. These management practices include instructional supervision, staff welfare, professional development, recruitment, communication styles, and interpersonal relationship, among others, as has been given to us by Jones and George 2016, then Prydetel 2015. Similarly, Sekamwa and Lugamba 2000 and 2001 asserted that the management support practices by F.W. Taylor gave rise to establishment of many private organizations, most particularly secondary schools. The great upsurge in the number of private schools during the 1960s was accompanied by some opposition. Nevertheless, some adventurers looked at the exercise more from the financial point of view than from an educational standpoint. They began to establish private schools in all sorts of buildings, including abandoned former cotton ginneries and abandoned former bakeries. At times, some of them would collect the school fees and disappear from the students, or they would hardly teaching the students adequately and providing their schools adequate scholastic materials. To the current researcher, this reflected low job performance among teachers and failure to practice management practices by school managers. So the above phenomenon was one reason why the government passed the 1970 Education Act, which require even up to now, any person intending to open up a private school to seek permission first from the Commissioner for Education. Also, because there was a rapid development of parent schools and private schools owned by Asians, the government feared that the discriminatory church and racial schools were likely to reappear on the scene. We find that in the Ministry of Education 1998 and those other scholars. So another reason for passing the 1970 Education Act was to restrain churches and Asians from opening up private schools, which might in the end become discriminatory on the basis of region and race. However, the parent schools and the Asians-owned private schools were no longer discriminatory and denominational. They were enrolling any student capable to pay the school fees regardless of his or her region or race. However, their job performance was still a problem. That is from Kasfa 2007, Nsubuga and Lemetia 2000. So here I'm giving how the problem is appearing from the global perspective up to the narrowing it to Uganda, where my case study is. So globally, the problem of low teachers' job performance is more serious in developing countries than developed ones, as given to us by M and Nanmi, those scholars. Hope we are able to see them. In the Western world, particularly the USA and Europe, for a long time, and more importantly, since the 1980s, school organizations have implemented performance management systems with a set of recognition and reward programs aimed primarily at motivating and guiding teachers towards attaining goals through higher performance. For instance, Edward 2020, page 50, indicates that in the USA, there has been existence of offering of generous compensation packages to the nation's 20 million to teachers to enhance performance. In the United States of America, studies carried out by Garion, Stan Benes, and late 2020 and those other fellow scholars to assess teachers' job performance in private schools indicates that 70% of the new teachers are given workshops to help them in their professional development. This has helped them to improve on their job performance. The findings indicates that only 10% of the teachers could not complete the syllabus coverage, and 80% of the teachers miss lessons and fail to compensate them. However, Absama, Haming, Latif, and Alpha 2017, page 180, and Sadon 2016 pointed out that in Indonesia, teachers' job performance has been low in most of the private secondary schools. This is evidenced with the high rate of reluctance by teachers to attend to the learners, with about 40% of the teachers report late to work and end up missing lessons. Furthermore, 30% fail to complete the syllabus coverage, and 45% of the teachers have been reluctant to perform weekly duties. This has led to low quality of education at every level of educational unity. That is by Absama Haming, Latif 2017, page 188. Africa also registers low teachers' job performance. For example, in Nigeria, Ikenjuku 2015 wrote a report on content coverage of teachers and stressed that over 25% of teachers do not deliver enough content. He attributed all this to limited supervision practices, low motivation practices by school administrators, and limited involvement of teachers in decision-making process. Similarly, RRC 2015, page 4, noted in Africa the variations in teachers' rate of job performance among different African countries and the rate of availability of administrators at school to do the day-to-day management practices. This has retarded the education system of many African countries. RSC 2015 summarized the rate of job performance of both teachers and administrators in the table below. So that table is trying to show us teachers' rate of absency in different African countries. Uganda is not there because major I'm looking at the problem. Now I'm on the African rate. So we may ask ourselves why these countries and yet Uganda is not there. But then I'm coming to the Ugandan case. So we are able to see the rate of absence for teachers and for administrators or the head teachers. The source is RSC 2015. The Ministry of Education 2016 stressed that Uganda also registers low teachers' job performance in most of the private secondary schools. The report by the Ministry of Education and Sports 2018 indicated that 30% of teachers in Uganda report at school but fail to teach students. Some come when drunk and others report late and leave early before time. This has retarded the education system of Uganda. In Uganda, teachers' job performance in most of the private secondary institutions greatly became a problem from 2007 after the introduction of UCE, whereby many teachers were required to teach in government secondary schools. Thus, teachers in private secondary institutions became unenthusiastic to fulfill their duties of teaching and learning process because of total assurance of salary payments by the government. This made them struggle very much to be employed in government secondary institutions where they allocated more time at the expense of private secondary schools. And that is from the Ministry of Education 2015. That has been the historical background. Then the conceptual perspective. Here I'm looking at the different concepts I'm to use in my research. That is from the concepts from independent variable and dependent variable majorly, because some scholars may have different meanings, but these meanings which are put here, at the end of the day, the current researcher has a base to see that in this study, that is the meaning I'm going to use. So conceptually, Chinonye 2020, page 21, defines management support practices as the working methods and innovations that managers use to improve the effectiveness of work system. And similarly, Nutri 2016, page 28, defined management support practices as the provision of enabling working environment for teachers to render the needed services effectively in the school system. Even other scholars are there, but in this study, the current researcher views management support practices as the day-to-day organizational activities practiced by a manager to improve on the performance of his or her subordinates for the attainment of the organizational goals. And the management support practices adopted in this study are professional development, staff welfare, instructional supervision, head teachers communication style, and teaching staff recruitment. Then other concepts, professional development are opined by Wayman Dismon, that is 2012, page 11, is a set of systematic and planned activities designed by an organization to provide its members with the opportunity to learn necessary skills to meet the current and future demands. Also, other scholars are there, but to the current researcher, professional development is the process of improving the existing skills, knowledge, exposure, and abilities in an individual. It includes training and retraining, workshops, and refresher courses. The concept of staff welfare has been used by many organizations as a strategy of improving productivity of employees, most especially when work-related problems can lead to poor quality of life for staff and a decline in performance. And here, to the current researcher, staff welfare is the provision of better working conditions to the employees in order to create a conducive environment to enable them to work with zeal to achieve organizational goals. And here, among the staff welfare that are going to be used in the study include provision of housing, good meals, and allowances. Instructional supervision, according to Maduduli 1015, is a process that focuses on instruction and provides teachers with information about their teaching so as to develop instructional skills to improve performance. And this determines the goals of schools and means of accomplishing them. So there are many scholars that are defining it, but to the current researcher, instructional supervision means the overall monitoring and evaluation of the teaching and learning process in an education institution by school administrators to ensure achievement of the organizational goals. Then we go on to communication, the process of creating or sharing meaning in informal conversation, group interaction, or public speaking. And here the researcher is interested in the head teacher's communication style, and this refers to how head teachers verbally and non-verbally interacts to signal how literal meaning should be taken, interpreted, filtered, and understood. And to the current researcher, head teacher's communication style refers to the various strategies, including verbal, non-verbal, and caring approach, which head teachers employ to make the teachers understand their instructions effectively for improved job performance. And according to the study, the head teacher's communication style is going to be seen as open, inclusive, aggressive, and assertive. And to explain briefly about an open communication style is a style of communication in which the leader consciously creates an atmosphere where all individuals within an organization express their views and opinions on issues affecting the running of an organization. Here, the individuals are free to bring out their views, and the head teachers, the administrators welcomes them. And then an inclusive communication style is another style that can be adopted by the head teachers in schools. It is one in which conscious steps are taken by principals to ensure that all staff members in the school feels that they are involved in the decisions that affect their day-to-day activities. And at the end of the day, of course, they feel that sense of belonging and they are able to improve on their job performance. Another style is assertive style, and a school principal who engages in assertive communication is open to hearing the opinions of others and feels comfortable enough to express his own opinions as well. He has a high self-esteem and the confidence to effectively communicate with others without getting offended or being manipulated. Doctor, I repeated that slide, I'm sorry. Then the last communication style is aggressive. It is one in which individuals express their feelings and opinions and advocate for their needs in the way that violates the rights of others. Thus, aggressive communicators are verbally or physically abusive. Head teachers who uses aggressive communication style creates a win-lose situation and uses intimidation to get his or her needs met, often at the expense of others. And aggressive head teachers feel a strong sense of inadequacy and has lack of empathy and believes the only way to get their needs met is through power and control. And this style can affect performance as teachers feel that they don't belong or valued. The head teacher doesn't value them. Another concept, according to Opatha 2013, recruitment is the process of finding and attracting suitably qualified people to apply for job vacancies in the organization. It is a set of activities an organization uses to attract job candidates who have the needed abilities and attitudes. And here, to the current researcher, sorry, in the same vein, Henry and Temter in 2019 defined recruitment as the entry point of manpower into an organization and the path an organization must follow from there on in order to make sure that they have attracted the right individuals. Agro defines teachers' job performance as an act of accomplishing or executing a given task for the achievement of the organizational goals. And Wheelang and Lerner stressed that teachers' job performance relates to what teachers do in the classroom and how that affects students' learning. And still other scholars had to define about teachers' job performance. Then, according to Berias, Kaustoris, and Sadrorias 2015, school culture refers to historically transmitted patterns of meaning that includes the norms, values, beliefs, tradition, and myth understood by members of the school community. And according to the researcher, school culture is the practice. The researcher defines school culture as the practice of a school in different aspects, that is behavior, relationships, ceremonies, physical activities, teaching and learning, so as to attain the organizational goals. That has been the conceptual perspective, and this school culture is going to be the mediating variable, as we shall see on the conceptual framework. So the theoretical perspective, the study shall be guided by scientific management theory. The theory was developed by Frederick Winslow Taylor in 1856 to 1915. Throughout his career, Taylor was concerned with the problems of increasing labor productivity without putting under strain on workers. Taylor was assisted in the development of scientific management by many other pioneers like Henry Elgant, Harslow, Pearson, Harrington, Emerson, Frank Gilbreth, and Lydian. This is from Morgan 2016, page 48, and Chandan 2013, page 27. According to Taylor, the main purpose of the management should be to sustain the maximum well-being of all personnel and accordingly realize the maximum welfare of the employee for improved job performance. Taylor expressed that the managers have to shoulder certain responsibilities and fulfill some missions to which they are not accustomed in order to completely understand the scientific methods and implement it. Taylor announced these missions and responsibilities as scientific management principles. And according to Hindi 2016, Morgan 2016, and those other scholars, the scientific management principles are also assumptions upon which Taylor theory is based, and the theory is based on the following assumptions, and these assumptions helped the current researcher majorly to get the indicators of the indicators of the different concepts. That's how why this theory is guiding the study, because the conceptual framework, most of the indicators of the dependent and independent variables are got from the assumptions of these theories. The first assumption, the theory involves development of a science for each element of man's work, which replaces the old rule of the thumb method. And here decisions should be made on the basis of facts rather than opinions and beliefs. Then another assumption, scientific selection, training and development of workers. And this requires that workers should be selected and trained in accordance with the requirement of the job to be entrusted to them. And this helps to improve their skills for improved job performance. Then there should be close cooperation between workers and management. This is to ensure that work is done in accordance with the development of scientific principles. Then equal division of work and responsibility. Management should take more responsibility for planning and supervision of work, while workers should be concerned with execution of plans. So Taylor theory of science.
Sister.
Yes, doctor.
I think in the interest of time and for you to be able to get good comment, I'll propose there are certain things that people must see, and you have very many slides. I may not have enough time for this. My proposal is that, can we look at your objectives, the research questions, the conceptual framework, objective research questions, conceptual framework, and then we'll go to the methodology.
Okay. Doctor, statement.
Statement is which slide?
Of the problem. It is 46. Slide 46. Page. That is still. We can continue, doctor. Contextual. After contextual, doctor, that's where a statement is. There. Okay, the statement of the problem. The job performance of teachers in most of the private secondary schools of Central Uganda has deteriorated within the last 5 years. Most teachers have failed to fulfill their duty of teaching learning process. This is manifested in limited teachers' attendance to the learners so as to satisfy their academic needs. Low syllabus coverage, reluctance to prepare schemes of work and lesson plans, limited interpersonal relationship, and limited participation in co-curricular activities, and that is from the Ministry of Education 2017. According to the report by the Ministry of Education, over 40% of teachers in Central Uganda are not dedicated to their duties. They miss lessons and do not compensate them. Similarly, 30% of the teachers give exercise but fail to mark, making it hard for students to discover their mistakes. The problem of low teachers' job performance has affected the education system of Uganda discouraged the majority of students at the universities to join the teaching profession and resulted into failure by many private institutions to attain their set goals and objectives. School administrators of some private secondary institutions are under pressure and are expected to provide enabling working environment for teachers' high job performance through management support practices. Unfortunately, majority of school administrators of private secondary institutions do not effectively and efficiently provide these management support practices. This may be the reason for lapses of teachers' negative attitude to work in most of the private secondary institutions. Lewy 2016 in his study on teachers' job performance recommended that to improve teachers' job performance, there is need by the government and school administrators to mentally prepare and train teachers with coaching skills so as to work as a team for mutual benefits, communicate well in lesson planning, and support each other with positive ideas for professional development. Also, this is another study. Similarly, the government has also injected money. To enhance performance of teachers, the government of Uganda has introduced various mechanisms. For example, the Ministry of Education has introduced training of teachers in cyber schools, technology solution knowledge through workshops in the teaching of science subjects and secondary sciences, and secondary science and mathematics teachers, that is SEMAT, projecting annual workshops. Similarly, the government has also injected money in teachers' circle to enable them access low-cost loans as a way of improving on their welfare. If the above undesirable situation is not solved, the number of students joining private secondary school will greatly decrease. Poor academic performance is likely to be experienced for a long time. Collapse of some private secondary institution and retarded education system of Uganda. So from the review of literature, the current researcher noted that globally there is no similar study that has been carried out to address the problem while considering the management support practices. Yet their provision is essential for improving teachers' job performance and building sufficiently motivated and effective teachers. It is from this conviction that the researcher finds it necessary to carry out a study which focuses on management support practices and teachers' job performance. So the general objective, the major objective of the study is to investigate the influence of management support practices on teachers' job performance. And here we have specific objectives of the study. The study will be guided by the following specific objectives: to assess the influence of professional development on teachers' job performance in private secondary schools in central Uganda, to find out how staff welfare influences teachers' job performance in private secondary schools in central Uganda, to examine the influence of instructional supervision on teachers' job performance in private secondary schools, central Uganda, to ascertain the effect of head teachers' communication style on teachers' job performance in private secondary schools in central Uganda, and to examine how teaching staff recruitment influences teachers' job performance in private secondary schools of Uganda. And the last one, to assess the influence of school culture on teachers' job performance in private secondary schools. And then there are research questions. Of course, they are directly got from the specific objectives and then the research hypothesis.
Okay, can we go to the framework?
Yes, this is on page, slide 61. Yes, Doctor.
Let her flash it.
Yes.
Yeah,
So this conceptual framework is showing us that
Slideshow.
Prof, they are in a PDF format, so they are kind of difficult to put in slideshow.
Okay,
at
but
the moment.
the independent variable is management support practices. These management practices are professional development. Its indicators are continuous training and retraining, workshops, then refresher courses. Then another indicator of management support practice is staff welfare, and its sub-indicators are housing, meals at school, then allowances. These are transport and duty allowances. Then another one is instructional supervision, and this is seen in classroom visits, inspection of lesson notes, inspection of schemes of work. Then the head teacher's communication style, its sub-indicators are open communication style, inclusive communication style, then assertive and aggressive communication style. The teaching staff recruitment has an indicator. Its sub-indicators are education qualifications and working experience. Then on the dependent variable, that is teachers' job performance, its indicators are syllabus coverage, scheming and lesson planning, teachers' attendance, weekly duty performance, participation in co-curricular activities, interpersonal relationship, availability for consultation, and marking of students' assignments. And the mediating variable is the school culture, which can be seen in school rules and regulations and the reading style. This here, we find that these management support practice indicators may affect teachers' job performance positively or negatively. And then the mediating variable also can affect teachers' job performance, but this one, the researcher will have control over it. Majorly, that is the framework. Doctor, we can go to the methodology.
Which page is that?
Methodology 72, slide, page 18, slide 72.
Oh.
So here in the methodology, of course, this chapter focuses on research design, data type and source, population of the study, sample size and sampling design, data collection methods, validity and reliability of the instrument, data analysis, limitations and ethical considerations. So the current researcher will adopt a mixed methodology when carrying out research. And according to AMRIC 2016, mixed methodology involves the collection and analysis of analyzing of both qualitative and quantitative data. This approach will provide the researcher with opportunities to compensate for inherent method weaknesses and inherent method strength and offset inevitable method biases. And this mixed methodology will enables the greater degree of understanding to be formulated that if when a single approach is used, then I think all these are supporting the mixed methodology that is going to be used. We go to research design, that is page slide 75. Research design, according to Crosswell, research design refers to a plan that a researcher prefers to follow when conducting research study. And this plan guides the research on what to include in research once a research exercise is set into motion. And then the current researcher views the research design. That is my view on research design. The researcher will employ the use of descriptive research design for both quantitative and qualitative data when carrying out the study. The method is preferred because it will enable the researcher to accurately and systematically describe the problem under study through using a wide variety of research methods to investigate the variables under study. This research design will also help the researcher gain a deeper knowledge of the research problem, since it allows in-depth knowledge of the phenomenon under study, thus yielding rich data that will help to that will lead to important recommendations. The descriptive research design will be used together with triangulation approach so as to combine both qualitative and quantitative methods to gather data for an overall interpretation that looks at a variety of different factors. The triangulation method will help the researcher to gather complementary yet distinctly different data on the same topic, which can be integrated for analysis and interpretation. And that one is being supported by SAMI 2016, when he says that triangulation methods makes it easy for the researcher to gather information from different sources, utilizing different methods, most especially with descriptive studies, since reality is multifaceted. The area of the study. The study will be conducted in selected private secondary schools in central region of Uganda. This is based on the criteria that most of the private secondary institutions are concentrated in the central region of Uganda. And for school selection, the current researcher set parameters which will be used to select the schools, and these include a private school that has existed for more than 10 years, have a reasonable population of over 400, including administrators, teachers, and students. Fully registered private school by the Ministry of Education and Sports. These private schools should not be of the same district for reliable generalized findings. And basing on those set perimeters, the selected private schools to be used, the study include Uganda Matters Secondary School, Rubaga in Kampala district. This one is Catholic faith-based. Kasanji High School in Wakiso district. This is individual-based. Kasao Mubanda Secondary School in Mukono district. It is faith-based and it is Protestant. Blessed Sacrament Secondary School, Chimanya in Masaka District, Catholic and faith-based. Then Central College Secondary School, Michiana in Michiana District, it is individual-based. Data type and source, the current researcher will use both primary and secondary data sources when carrying out the study. Primary data will be collected from the respondents, that is to say from school administrators, teachers, and students of the 5 selected schools. This will enable the current researcher to get first-hand detailed information of the study. Secondary data will be collected from the district education reports of Kampala, Wakiso, Mukono, Masaka, and Michiana, where selected schools are found. Organizational reports of selected private schools, for example, Board of Governors meeting, staff meeting reports, and departmental meeting reports will also be used. This will help the current researcher to collect accurate and current data about the study. Population of the study. Population of the study refers, those are definitions. The population to be used for the study of the 5 selected private secondary schools of Central Region districts of Kampala, Wakiso, Mukono, Masaka, and Michiana for school administrators, teachers, and students is distributed in this table. Below it is showing us a population for each school, showing the number of administrators, teachers, and then the number of students. And when we consider all those, the total population is, for all the selected schools, it is 60,850. Then the sample size. According to Guy, that is also a definition. A sample is a portion of the population whose results can be generalized. So the researcher will consider a sample size of 361 respondents. This was determined using the sampling table by Kraj and Morgan, 1970. It comprised of 23 administrators, 100 teachers, 238 students from the 5 selected schools. And here, the sample size is illustrated in the table below, showing the number of administrators, teachers, and students. And then this table shows the method that is going to be used to select that sample. For administrators, it is census because we are taking the whole number. Then teachers, to select the 100 teachers, it is simple random sampling. And for students, it is also simple random sampling. Sampling techniques. Theory defines sampling as a process of selecting elements from the population. With sampling techniques, first of all, multi-level sampling design was used by the researcher to get the 5 selected private secondary schools. By use of this method, the researcher divided the population into defined groups of 5 districts of central Uganda. The researcher picked 1 private school from each sampled district, while following the set perimeters as indicated in the area of study section using simple random sampling, so as not to be biased. Census sampling will be used for school administrators. The method involves considering the whole population as a sample. The researcher will consider all their numbers because the group is convenient for the study since the population is small to be sampled for school administrators. Simple random sampling will be used by the researcher to select the 100 teachers and the 238 students from the 5 selected private secondary schools. The method involves selecting any element of the population at random until the required number size of the sample is obtained. The method is preferred because it will give chance to any element of the population of teachers and students to be selected to form a sample. And that information is summarized in the other table. Data collection methods. The researcher will employ the use of interviews and questionnaire methods when collecting data. An interview is an oral administration of the questionnaire or the interview schedule. With this method, the researcher will be able to collect detailed information about the study since the method can allow flexibility and creation of relationship between the researcher and the school administrators. Then the questionnaire method will also be used by the researcher to collect information from teachers and students. A questionnaire is a carefully designed instrument for collecting data in accordance with a specification of the research questions and the hypotheses. The questionnaire will have both open and closed-ended questions for both teachers and students designed to address the objectives of the study. The closed-ended questions will be of a Likert scale. The researcher will prefer using questionnaire method because the technique is free from bias. Respondents have enough time to respond to the questions, and also the technique enables collection of reliable data from a wide geographical area. Instrumentation. The researcher will employ use of interview guide and questionnaire form to collect data from respondents. The questionnaire forms. Questionnaire form is defined. Core 2014 defined a questionnaire form as a research instrument consisting of a series of questions for the purposes of gathering information from the respondents. With this instrument, 2 sets of questionnaires will be prepared by the researcher consisting of both open-ended and closed-ended questions for teachers and the students. Each item on the questionnaire form will be developed to address a specific and research questions of the study. These will be administered to teachers and students of the selected private secondary schools. The questionnaire forms will help the researcher to collect both quantitative and qualitative data about all the objectives of the study. This instrument will be preferred by the researcher because of its ability to ensure confidentiality of responses from respondents, and also it will cover a wide geographical area. The interview guide. The researcher will administer interview guide on school administrators of selected private secondary schools. The interview guide will be used by the researcher because they provide in-depth data and also guarded against the confusing the questions, since the researcher will be able to clarify the questions, thereby helping the respondents give relevant responses. Quality control measures. The researcher will consider the validity and reliability of research instrument to ensure that true and reliable data is collected from respondents. Validity of the research instruments. The researcher will test the questionnaire guide for teachers and students, as well as the interview guide for administrators, before using them to ensure that the tools to be used are valid. The researcher will first prepare and present them to supervisors, those are experts of Makerere University, who will check on their correctness to see if they can be used to give valid data that addresses the specific objectives and research questions of the study. The supervisor's comments will be used by the researcher to improve the questionnaire and by eliminating all errors. The researcher will ensure that the questions are relevant in order to have meaningful and reliable results represented by variables in the study. And this will be tested using that formula, that is content validity index, that is agreed items by all judges as suitable, divided by total number of the items judged, and the answer is equal or above 0.7, then the method will be accepted as a reliable instrument. Reliability of the research instrument. The researcher will test the tools of data collection method before using them to check whether different respondents understand the questions in the same way. The researcher will select pilot groups of 6 school administrators, 10 teachers, and 30 students from other private secondary schools within the selected districts that are known to be used for the study. These schools include Rubaga Girls Secondary School in Kampala District and St. Henry's Ruyege in Wakiso District. After, the researcher will analyze the questionnaires using statistical package for social sciences to determine the Cronch-Bunch's alpha coefficient. And according to Kothari, a score above or equal to coefficient 0.7 is accepted as reliable. Data management. The researcher will ensure that qualitative data and quantitative data collected from respondents using interview guides and questionnaire forms are properly recorded, organized, and arranged in line with the objectives before being analyzed for effective results. Data analysis. Data analysis refers to the process of getting meaning out of data collected by the researcher. Data collected from primary source in line with the objectives of the study will be compiled, sorted, edited for accuracy and clarity, classified, coded into a coding sheet, and analyzed using a statistical package for social science. The values representing the respondents' responses from all questionnaires will be entered into the computer so as to get meaning out of the data collected. This software will mainly analyze quantitative data that will be collected through the use of questionnaire guides. During data analysis, descriptive analysis using mean and standard deviations, as well as frequency distribution tables, pie charts, and bar graphs will be used to give meaning to data collected. The researcher will prefer using the mean, standard deviation, and frequency tables because they take into account each score or measurement in the distribution of data that will be collected. This implies that an in-depth systematic explanation will be provided by the researcher about the findings from the respondents in order to come to useful conclusions and recommendations. Simple regression analysis using chi-square will also be used by the researcher to analyze data so as to tell the degree of influence between the variables of study. Then the limitations of the study. The study will be limited by some respondents withholding information due to fear that the researcher will disclose it due to primitiveness and ignorance about the importance of research. However, the researcher will assure them that the research is intended for academic purposes and therefore high level of confidentiality will be exercised. Another limitation, unwillingness of some respondents to fill the questionnaires due to being busy attaching less value to research and laziness among them to help others achieve their goals. However, the researcher will call out proper sensitization and constant communication to the respondents to remind them the importance of filling questionnaires and returning them to the researcher so as to contribute to the body of knowledge. Thank you so much, members, for listening. May God bless you.
Thank you very much, sister, for a very long, detailed presentation. Hopefully you have where to put these comments. I know at this level and the quality of the students we have on the platform, you can have as many comments as possible from the students community. Members, allow me welcome you to our session once again. Allow me deeply appreciate the commitment of the senior colleagues who are able to unconditionally sacrifice their time and sleep and join you on these sessions. So our senior colleagues who have just joined us, whom I don't introduce in the first time, more specifically our own professor, Professor Rolla. Thank you for making it and joining in. Dr. Nkurunziza, Gideon, and Dr. Hassan Bashir. Thank you, and thank you very much for being with us this morning. I think I also saw Dr. Edith. I hope she's still online. Right. Can we? You have had a very long presentation of Sister Betty. A very long presentation. Sister Betty is here for your guidance. She's a student. She has already apologized for errors and mistakes here and there. She's only willing to learn, given that she's a student. So I would request that we openly give her those comments to enable her improve her work and enable her actually put her work into a good shape. Thank you, and you're welcome. I don't know whether some comments can be in the chat, others can raise up their hands, but we can take all of them. Sister Betty, hope you have a pen and paper.
Yes,
Yeah.
Doctor.
Chair, I'm suggesting that she begins with the comments in the chat room because there are already comments there.
Comments in the chat room. There is a comment. Comment number 1, the others were just to me. Is it true that low job performance in Uganda is only registered in central Uganda? For you to justify it as a case study, what is unique?
Here, begin with the one that is slightly above that one.
Slightly above that.
Slightly. Maybe the slides.
Okay, I had skipped that. Perhaps sister could avoid reading the slides, but just give the main points in each slide. I hope that was a comment. Maybe the slides could have been summarized with bullets, not full sentences, and detailed citations. That is a general comment, sister. I think you are picking these as core issues. I mean, that we're going to talk about it has been a general problem, a very big problem. I think we are going to expand on that. The issue of understanding slides. What are slides? What is the meaning of PowerPoint? The meaning of PowerPoint. We need to go back to those housekeeping issues, and you will be able to handle them well. I don't know whether the professor would like to expand that one now, or we can talk about it at the end.
Well, Chair, I will not really say anything, but proceed with the comments.
Okay. Harriet, sorry, Sister Betty, there's a comment from Harriet Onen.
Yes, Doctor.
Is it true that low job performance in Uganda is only suggested in central Uganda for you to justify it as a case study?
Oh, Doctor, it is not true. It is true that it is common in central Uganda, but
Sister,
yes, Doctor.
I would like to suggest that you wait for the person reading, because the comment is still longer than that. But you're taking notice, and please take note of those comments. They are all useful, and they are meant to improve your work.
Okay, Doctor.
Dr. Olgembo, over to you again.
So the comment ends with a question: what is unique about job performance in central Uganda compared to other regions? I think that's where the core question is. What is unique about job performance in central Uganda compared to other regions of the country? You need to justification of your study area or population. Right. I think before we go to the next comment, I got issues also. Can you answer that before we proceed, sister?
Okay, this one, why I considered central Uganda, I said that's where most of the private schools are concentrated. You find that in other regions, there are few private schools, and for the study to carry value, I thought that central Uganda will work as a center point for generalization, because majority of private schools are concentrated in central Uganda. And since they are concentrated, that's where the problem is impacting more on the education sector. Since other regions, they have got few private schools. That's what I can say, Doctor.
Okay, I think our senior colleagues will come in later for more guidance. Your justification for that the population may be lacking, may need to strengthen it, but you can get more guidance over that. Now, there's this other comment from Geoffrey. How will you have control over the mediating variable?
Sorry?
How will you have control over the
Okay.
mediating variable?
Okay.
I have the feeling, sister.
Yes,
I
Doctor.
think I will request Professor Rola to come in. We go. You said your concept framework was on which page? Somebody has talked about your framework was on which slide?
Framework is on Doctor, slide 61.
Slide 61 is the framework.
Yes, Doctor.
I think Professor Rola may need to come in at this point, because your understanding of mediation and your drawing of conceptual
Make it
framework.
slightly bigger.
Let me you know, Professor, it is in she used a PDF, which is a little bit difficult to.
But there's a plus up there.
For the PDF, it kind of doesn't work well on a PDF. The plus and minus signs with a PDF. But let me try to use them. When you use them, does that add value?
A bit, although some of the things disappear. Reduce a bit, I think, so that we see the mediator, as she calls it.
A mediator is school culture, school rules and regulations, reading style.
I hope she knows the difference between a moderator and a mediator. I would like her to possibly say something about moderator and mediator.
Hello, Doctor.
Sister, if you have heard my question, I wish you could just say general knowledge about what a mediator is and what a moderator is.
Okay. So a moderator, the moderating variables or moderator, these ones, they can enhance positively or negatively the relationship between the independent variable and dependent variable. These moderating variables do not directly affect the relationship between independent and independent because the researcher can somehow have control since.
Sister, I hope you are not contradicting yourself. The second statement contradicts the earlier statement that it affects positively and negatively. Now you are saying it does not necessarily. But it's all right if you don't know what these things are.
It affects positively and negatively, Doctor. But what I'm saying, because the researcher can have control over them, but if not controlled very well, they may affect 100% positively or negatively. But for these mediating variables, for them, they help to connect the influence of independent variable onto the dependent variable. And their inclusion, you find that it is necessary. In research, it is necessary when independent variables may not have a direct influence into the dependent variable. That is for mediating. That's what I can say, Doctor.
Thank you, Professor Antai. Prof, you have heard the comments.
Yes.
We are on the framework. Members' comments on this framework. I know there are so many comments that have come in here. There are so many comments. Possibly we can get them coming out from the members. We exhaust this because it is a big problem. Another comment on the framework before we go back to the chapter? Yes, Prof.
Sister, thank you for your presentation. My biggest concern is mastery of the work. Why I say this is because, sister, you spent a lot of time reading word for word. You should, at this level, be able to know your work. For a PowerPoint, you just put points, and then as you present, you expound on those points. avoid reading word for word. And then, sister, this is for your own good. When you make a presentation like this, during Q&A, it's better you first listen, take note, then when you're given an opportunity to respond is when you respond, instead of hijacking when the question is still being put across. Listening skills, okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry I joined in late. My days have not been very well. We came back from burial. Upon reaching home, another death announcement is made. So it has not been easy. So I joined in late, in short, but quickly on the conceptual framework. My concern is on the volume of the questionnaire at the end. You know, I always say, as you draw up your conceptual framework, at the back of your mind, you should have the design of your questionnaire. I've forgotten the authors on questionnaire design, but if I get it, I will share on the student platform. The authors insist that for every indicator there, every dimension there, you must have a set of, questionnaire items. So I'm looking at job performance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 dimensions. I'm assuming that 8 will have, let's say, maybe a minimum of 5 questions each. 5 items each. How big is that questionnaire going to be? This is just food for thought. Think about it. Then the issue of moderator, mediator, I think Professor Ntai gave you a task. Otherwise, what you have drawn there, that is not a mediation. That's a moderated model. It's not a mediated model. That's a moderated model. So be careful as you use these concepts. Professor Ntai asked you, is it a moderator, a mediator? The way you use these 2 concepts or variables matter when it comes to the drawing. And also it has an impact on the data analysis. The analysis performed for moderation are different for the analysis performed for a mediation. Think about that. I don't expect you to respond, but think about that and try to improve your work. Then I'm looking at management support practices. One of the indicators is teacher staff recruitment. And I ask myself, how is teacher staff recruitment and management support? Think about that. Then still on the conceptual framework, when you were talking about your respondents, you had 3 categories. You had the administrators, you had the teachers, and you had the students. My question is, who is the right person? Who is the right person to give you free of bias responses on job performance? You are investigating teacher job performance. Would you again go to the teacher to collect data? won't the teacher just tick strongly agree, strongly agree, strongly agree? Who is the right person to give you information that is free of bias? As you look at your conceptual framework, who is the right person to give you the free of bias responses, so that when you analyze, come up with the results, discussion and everything, you say, yes, this indeed is the picture out there. A teacher, syllabus coverage, me, I'll say yes, 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 even when I know that I have not covered the syllabus. But a student will say, you see, for us up to this level, up to this extent. But what about the administrator? Which administrator are we talking about? How will the administrator know if a syllabus has been covered? How will the administrator know? Anyway, those are questions you should have at the back of your mind as you think about the true respondents for your study, okay? Let's go to methodology. Another thing on presentation, in future, I think just put the work in the right mode. Because now you kept saying page 72, page this. You're assuming the audience has your work. This is dangerous. Next time, do the real PowerPoint presentation and avoid the PDF things if they can't, Okay, methodology. You see chapter 2. Is this PowerPoint? Or it is the proposal itself? Because a PowerPoint wouldn't have chapter 2, what? Okay, as
So
you...
methodology is on which slide?
These are not slides. This is the book. As she gets there, what I had noted in the methodology is I did not hear anything on the philosophical stance. So the question I noted is, what's the philosophy of your study that you adopted? We need to hear about that. Then for those individual items under methodology, research design, in the presentation, we don't expect you to define research design. Population sample, we don't expect you to define those. Excuse me. Research design. Okay, I've talked about philosophical stance. Go and include that. Then somewhere you talked about triangulation, and you stopped at defining triangulation. Okay, you gave a justification, but I did not hear about how you will triangulate. How will you triangulate? Is it going to be concurrent, sequential, whatever? This needs to come out clearly. I would like to stop here. Over to you, moderator. Sister, my comments are just for you to note, not for you to respond to, okay?
Yes, madam.
Thank you very much, Professor Roland.
Yeah, can I add?
Yes, Prof. Yes, Professor Antai.
I want to thank Sister for her presentation. I have obvious comments, obvious. the usual comments. Sister, when I listened to your presentation on management support practices, I wish you could put back the conceptual model.
Okay.
If it is not inconveniencing you. You said it was around 60 something. Was it 61 or?
61, I'm going there.
Page 61 of the book or page 61 of the slides or? Anyway, yeah, that's what I see. Now, sister, when you look at this conceptual framework, just look at the variable on-ramp management support practices. I went through all those bullets, including staff welfare and the rest. I also went through the items for teachers' job performance. I think you still have conceptual problems, conceptual challenges. I'll tell you what I did. When I saw that, I went to the internet to do some bit of just to try and understand your constructs very well. I made a search on what I call management support practices and looking at the conceptualization. And I found a number of studies from Nigeria, from South Africa, and other parts of the world on management support practices, enhancing teachers' job performance in secondary schools. One of the studies was done in Enugu State, Nigeria, and another one is general. Of course, this one is done by Egobka. You have another one done by Onuma on principles management support practices for enhancing teachers' job performance. And a number of other studies that I saw. I had over 200 hits about this, and these are in a Google Scholar, meaning that at least they have a scholarly content. I got an impression that the study you are doing has been done. So they have actually worked on this thing called management support practices and teachers' performance. And you've got so many journal articles. So if I were you, I would have started by reading these journals because there are many to begin with. If you have over 200 hits, and of course, I'll also tell you that the record I had for teachers' job performance was over 20,000 journal articles. It's again in Google Scholar, right? Simple, exploratory Googling gave me that kind of thing. So you've got over 20,000 scholarly works in this area. Some may not be specifically in schools, but for schools you have over 200 hits. And then when you add in other sectors that are a little bit close to that, you've got over 20,000. So you'd have started by downloading these journal articles and you try to understand, you conceptualize what management support practice is all about and what teacher performance is all about. And bearing in mind that the study you are doing has already been done by others, so you're actually duplicating the study. So you should be able to create a gap. In other words, you are supposed to review the literature critically so that you create a gap for your study to contribute. Now, for me, as I listen to you, there is no contribution, right? There is nothing new. You are only talking about the usual things and what these people have said. Even the culture, by the way, you are talking about has been covered. I saw the others were actually taken as some of the variables we are talking about. In these journal articles, they were considering them as mediators. For example, there was a systematic literature review done by Timothy Judge, Thorson Turane, Joyce Bono, and Patton. And this was done around 2001, right? And it is, they call it, it's a review, but it's both a qualitative and a quantitative review, right? But they look at those aspects. Then there's another one done by another scholar called Tahini and Shanak. These are systematic literature review. At least they attempted to try and look at most of the studies done in that period. And they show you what scholars have really put together, how knowledge has developed in that area, that discipline. So some of them have very interesting ideas where they bring in aspects that relate to personality, others the cognitive domain, others, they look at a number of other things. So in other words, the point I'm driving home is that, please, if I were you, I would start with a review, because I'm even doing a study in an area where you have so many publications on the same topic to begin with. Right, unless now you change the topic and make it a little bit different so that you create something new, but otherwise, but you may not even change it, you can still create something new in it. Now, the other comment is that you contradict yourself too much. And I don't know why that contradiction comes in, but you need to be very careful. The other thing I noted about the background that you tended to read word for word and so forth is full of, I mean, the consistency of thought is not there, right? As you move from one paragraph, even one sentence to another sentence, one paragraph to another paragraph, somebody gets lost so fast. And you even have a lot in the background that is unrelated. So somebody can easily switch off and fail to follow. At one stage, for example, you say that head teachers in private secondary schools don't offer management support systems, right? And then you go ahead and also say, especially in your background, right, that there are studies that have tried to study management support systems and teachers' performance. And then you give us results. Now, when one compares the results that you are giving us and the statement made earlier that these people do not, right, do this in secondary schools, there's a mismatch between that. So that's a comment I wanted to make. Now, the other comment is you selected the schools. I heard you giving us a list. You are reading a list that you had there. You said this one here is a Catholic faith-based. This one is a Protestant. I got an impression that you are adopting a case study methodology. That's the impression I got, because after all, the schools were not even too many. There were very few, I think about 4 or 5, if I'm not mistaken, but whatever the number. And you said, well, you want to generalize, right? I got a bit confused. I said, is she taking a case study methodology? Or two, these are general surveys, the usual surveys that we have. And if there are surveys, and yet you said you are going to cover a big part of the country and you are selecting, and you're saying, well, central Uganda, you are picking these ones and you have given your reasons, again, which are not very convincing. And you are selecting teachers, and then you have the students, you have the teachers, you have the administrators. I got a little bit confused. I think you need to rethink. Again, it's about consistency of thought. What do you want to do, and how are you going to do it? And here, again, the question of doing it well is very important. Now, when you come to the people who are going to answer, now I'm talking about the unit of inquiry. You talk about 3 categories, as Rola has already highlighted. You talk about teachers, you talk about students, and somewhere you talk about administrators. I got an impression that you don't seem to, you haven't thought through the constructs you are studying and the relevant respondents. Because if you're going to get a questionnaire where you have all those management support systems and your performance, and then you unleash the questionnaire to the students, and they must give you information about management support systems, I hope you're going to reconceptualize that, not really using the items that you have. But if you do, I don't know what the students are going to tell you, right? And you're asking the students about the performance of the teachers, right? Yes, some of them may have knowledge, but some of the students, most of the students these days, they don't even have the syllabus, right, that is supposed to be covered. And with the new curriculum, you know what is happening. Even the teachers are still confused. Some teachers are still confused on how they are going to do it and how they are going to deliver it. So I think you need to rethink, right? The job performance. These people, for example, all the teachers, they have supervisors. I would wish that you actually go to the immediate supervisors of these fellows so that they rate the performance of this. And these are people who check the syllabus coverage every now and then. Because I know in private schools, unless the ones we are talking about a little bit unique and different from the ones I know, right? The ones I know is that somebody will check the syllabus, and they will try to know how far the teacher has gone in covering those things. So the supervisor can actually tell you how well the fellow is performing, and they will tell you even the teachers who are bringing grades and the ones who are not bringing grades. So you need to be very careful about some of these things. Now, the other issue that you tended to leave out that you need to think about are issues of biases, common methods bias, right? And the issues of endogeneity. You need to think about them, especially in a study of this nature. So, as I said, these are general things, and you probably know them and you've heard about them, but they are the same things coming up. Ahmad, I rest my case. Over to you, Ahmad.
Thank you very much, Professor. I hope that a sister has picked the comments from Professor Antai. Professor indicated that these are just simple comments, but sister, at your level, these are very, very important comments. So let me go back to the comments in the chat. I think, sister, you are learning something from here. Please take note of Professor, I think the one for Professor Roller, about what was the basis for selection, why those particular schools. The same has been raised by Professor Antai. So take note of your selection of schools. Your population and sample issues must be visited. Actually, the whole methodology. You need to look at it. There's one interesting one, which I think we should look at. It looks to be very, very, I mean, something very simple. It seems that your objectives are not communicating with your conceptual framework. This is from Tushabe Peace. Sister, check your objectives and conceptual framework. If that is the case, then really, you need to really look at those are the beginning issues, sister. Can you look at objectives on which page, on which slide? Remind me, sister.
Slide 53.
Slide 53, objective. 53, objective. Okay, I'm there. So you are assessing influence of professional development on teachers' performance. You are finding out welfare influence of teachers' job performance on private schools. You're examining influence of instructional supervision on teachers' job performance. You are ascertaining effects of teachers' communication style on teachers' job performance. Recruitment on job performance. Okay, then you have climate on teachers' job performance. Then you have your framework on page 61. I think you realize that so many things like ways objective for climate, among others, are not indicated in the framework. I think we talked about deeply on this, but possibly my other comment, in addition to what Professor Antai said and Professor Rolla, is the drawing and the use of arrows. I think Professor Rolla talked about this, the use of arrows and the drawing of the framework. These are housekeeping issues, but I mean, somebody now will not tell where is the objective one, where is the objective two, where does one end, where does one start. Can you please clearly indicate that this is objective one, this is objective two by use of arrows? You have two boxes and one box is communicating with the other box. Please benchmark. That's what I can say in brief. Benchmark. Get guidance on how you can produce a better framework. And that's why peace, I think, is lost when it comes to the issues of objectives not communicating with the framework. Yes. Sister, take note of those comments. There is another comment. Your study is anchored on which philosophical orientation? That is Wire Edwin. Asule is saying we should have standards on presentations. We possibly can discuss that administratively. Owning your work, it has been talked about, Professor Antai. Joseph Felasu is telling you that please revisit your literature review on mediation and modulation. That is the biggest assignment you have from Professor Antai. Of course, Wawire Julius, statistically qualify your statement that Central Uganda has got more private schools than other regions. Therefore, it gives you the study more value. I think that is very, very important. As you strengthen your justification for the selection of your study area and sample, please justify statistically why other regions are left out by giving us figures. Maybe again to include Jose, this is from Zimbabwe, I think, is saying your exact problem is not clear. Your exact problem is not clear. I think Professor tried to bring out this. Actually, Professor in summary dismissed your work, but he did not say directly by indicating that there's nothing new. So you must go back to your gap and look at the gap. There is one, I think, take note, you need to come back and talk about your defend yourself on the issue of the problem and the gap in the remaining few minutes. Monica is saying, thanks for the presentation. What is your philosophy? Yes, Peace is talking about, again, you're being general when you talk about private and public schools. What is that unique problem that made you study this? What is that unique problem? I think we're going to call you to really summarize this, prepare for a response. Maybe people can guide you over that. We need to go back to the starting point and people guide you over the issue of your problem. How can you, where is your gap? Where is your gap? Because I think people are dismissing you over that. How will you analyze your qualitative data? That is Harriet Onen. So many comments from George Kasule here. Is it true the problem of low job performance remains in private schools, which are business oriented? Are you sure on that? That is a very good observation. Why Taylor's theory? Is there a theoretical gap? Why Central Uganda? We have talked about that. How many private secondary schools are in Central Uganda and why only 5? Professor Ndai raised that. What philosophy is guiding your study? Harriet Onen still. How will you employ a mixed method? I think even concurrent squash was talked about. What knowledge will you study generate? I think this related studies, as we talked about Professor Antaya again, so many studies that are related to what you are studying, what is new in what you're doing. Still, people are saying you please throw more light on the problem. Right. I think those are the comments so far in the chat, and I think we're going to end with this. I'm going to request you to come back.
There are some questions you have skipped, which I think are important. Professor James Kagari asks a question: what makes a PhD? I think she needs to answer that. Again, Lola raised the theoretical issues. The study doesn't seem to really have, doesn't seem to be anchored in theories. And maybe, Chair, there's one question that students always ask, and maybe here you need to guide them. And this is a question I attempted to answer some time back. And it's a question of how many objectives, whether you should have 3, whether you should have 4, including the hypothesis. Should you have 20, 5, 3, 4? Right, that kind of question. My answer to this is very simple. Universities have standards. If you go to some of the universities, for example, in Europe and the US, they will not allow you to start mixing theories. They will tell you use one theory, you cannot study so many theories. So your study will be anchored in one theory. Now, when you come here, Uganda, and you go to some universities, they are mixing 3 theories or 4 theories. In such situations, you cannot say that the other ones are right, these ones are wrong, these are wrong, the other ones are right. It really depends on the enthusiasm of the university and the standards they have put, they have laid down. The same goes to the discipline. I think that time I was dealing with theory building, where I did say that in some disciplines, scholars are enthusiastic, too enthusiastic that they can even test 20 hypotheses or 15. They will accept that. In some areas, they will say, no, you can't go beyond 3. So it all depends on the discipline, depends on the standards, and guidelines given by the university. And here I would suggest that you really stick to the guidelines of the university. But sometimes if you really come up with something that is too huge, and you have 2 PhDs in one, 3 PhDs, it will be very hard for you to complete on time. And that's why you keep on moving from here up to there. You get confused because you have too many constructs. And I mean, for example, if you look at this lady's conceptual framework, assuming that she had done the right conceptualization and all these things are in order. Now, as she writes her story in the background, all these things are supposed to be there because you provide background to actually the study, and the study is summarized in this kind of diagram. So even when it comes to the hypothesis and research questions, you're supposed to have those research questions or probably hypotheses or objectives covering all these constructs. You can't leave them out. So at the end of the day, the study becomes too huge and you get confused and you don't even know how to move. And if you're going to collect the data and test each of those things, remember, you're going to interpret your results. You're going to have a discussion. You are going to have implications, both theoretical implications, methodological implications, and practical implications. So you end up with a book of around 800 pages, and that will take time for you to write. And even the examiners will spend years reading your work. If for you it took you 4 years to write such a book, how about the examiner? He has to read and understand and get into your mind. Chair, I submit.
Thank you very much, Prof. Allow me to invite a sister to respond on some of those issues from Professor and to many that I've talked about in the comments. I would request after that. I would request Professor Roland to come back for final guidance to the students, and Professor Antai, and possibly one student. General guidance, one student, either Amerit or any or Bernard, whoever, Joseph, for guidance as how to really help our sister move on. Sister, please, can you come back and give us respond to some of those issues?
Thank you, Doctor, and thank you so much for all the corrections and guidance. I really appreciate. The one question was on the problem being not clear. This one, anyway, my problem is radio performance of teachers, but maybe as the people who have guided me are saying, we need to show the gap and to prove that really it is a problem that affects the private schools, but I try to bring it out by showing how teachers are not performing well, which is reflected in limited content coverage, syllabus. I think those ones I was talking about them. But why I had to base it on private institutions, we are seeing that now in private schools these days, we have problems whereby teachers are few, majority are learning to get jobs in government institutions. And even those who are there still, you will find out that if we are to call out research, majority are teaching in government, and like here in private, they are just allocating limited time to maybe okay because they have to earn salary and what have you, but their concentration, if the government school is very serious, they give more time to government. And in private, and I was thinking that if this is to continue like that, we are going to get a problem. Yet we have been knowing that in private schools, due to supervision and what have you, teachers are doing their level best, but it is turning up to be the opposite. That's why I was interested in private, but I don't say that in government, the job performance is okay, but I couldn't handle the two sections. That's why I'm in private, due to the fact that even these days, due to the increased salaries for teachers in the government, I thought of that even teachers will continue to run away from private schools to join the government, since the economic setup in a private school may not allow school administrators to raise their salaries and what have you. So that is majorly why I'm in private schools.
Sister, as you conclude that point,
Yes.
in terms of your thinking, you need to be very careful because you don't know, for example, how many teachers graduate every year from all the universities that we have, and you're not even very sure whether government can take all of them. So you find that many of the teachers actually are unemployed. Now, for you to assert that these are fellows who are running away from private schools and going to government where there is probably better pay and other things, that may not be correct. Two, I'll also let you know that many people who are employed in government and even getting a higher salary in probably government actually do go and work in the private sector where they even get less, about a quarter of what they're earning in the government. And you find these people highly committed. I'm saying this because I have evidence to that effect. So you need to rethink instead of making sweeping conclusions here and there, you need to rethink. And I know that in private schools, you've got good systems. In many private schools, by the way, good systems where they monitor the performance of teachers to ensure that students perform very well. And that's why when you pick the newspapers at the end of every year, when the results have come back for either O level or A level, you discover that the lineup for private schools, right, is too long if you look at the list. And then the government schools come last. In fact, it's rare for you to find a government school topping, right? Maybe if you look at those traditional schools, yes, they do, because they have the support of government, but also the religious kind of perspective where they are very strict, and so you find that they perform very well. So you need to be very careful as you conclude, as you make sweeping conclusive statements here. But I submit. Proceed.
Just to add on, as she zeroes down on private schools in her population, she really needs to give the actual total private schools. What is the total number? And out of that, which ones are you considering? What is your justification? Think about that, because the question here is, you have a particular list, and why do you come up? Why do you select only those ones? That is what you should, the justification must come out clearly in your write-up. Over to you, sister.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I'll check on that. One colleague was asking about the Taylor's gap in the theory I have used. The Taylor's gap, or why I chose Taylor's theory, is to guide my study. As I've said, that these theories are guiding my study in the way that the assumptions that were put in place by these theories were to help me get the indicators. And as you can see in the assumptions, most of the indicators have come out well. But I can't.
Sister.
Yes.
Sister.
Yes,
Is the Taylor you're talking about the one I've heard of, the one I know with scientific management theory? Is that the one?
Yes, Doctor.
Is it possible for you to show us the indicators here in your model that comes from Taylor's scientific management theory?
Yes, he talks of the training.
Yeah?
He talks of the training of money powers, and that's why in my whatever I have the professional development. Then he talked of also
Sister, my advice is that you go back and read Taylor scientific management so that you demonstrate to us how it actually informs this study. Otherwise, it's a little bit difficult for one to see that this work is anchored in Taylor's scientific management theory. Very, very hard. But proceed.
Thank you, Doctor. Doctor, the issues, I think they have already talked about them and their gaps, which I have to collect. I don't know, Doctor, how I can proceed. But I really appreciate all the submissions, and I promise to go and revisit my work in order to bring out new knowledge, like contributions towards the study. Doctor, that's what I can say. Because of most of the things are coming to be, they are advising me on how to improve my work.
Okay, thank you very much, Sister Betty. I think we need to get final guidance that structurally that can help you move. Professor Rolla, okay, let me begin with one from the students community. Can I get one who would like to give humble advice, humble guidance to the students, to our friend, sister? Any one of these long colleagues who have been on the PhD for quite some time, Bernard, Bosco, Livia, Joseph, what advice could you give to sister? One word.
Doctor, am I allowed to come in? I'm a student.
Okay, okay, Moses. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. And good morning, everyone. I came a little bit late, new to this panel, but I want to advise and thank Sister that take whatever feedback you got. This is the way to go. And since we are learning, it is good to appreciate. Take heart and thank you for the kind word given. Yeah, thank you very much. Keep it up. We know you will make it. We are following our prayers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comment from Dr. Hassan, Dr. Nkurunziza, Professor Kagari? Anyone comment from those three?
Thank you, Dr. Wargembe. Most of the technical issues I had on the paper have been raised, but there's one that we hardly take care of that could lead to desktop rejection. This is a health issue of using the American Psychological Association style of formatting and writing. I'll give an example of one professor who, after his retirement, reflected on some of the issues that he found problematic while supervising students at the different levels, be they certificate, diploma, first degree, master's, and PhD. And one of them you can see on the first slide is spelling error. Can't even spell research. Then a PhD, I learned is 2.5 letters. So in other words, there are two capitals and one, the H is lowercase. So one of the problems that we find is spelling errors, use of punctuations. People can't know when to use a colon, a full stop, a comma, a semicolon, use of a tar, the ampersand, paragraphing. And so this professor said, this is as bad as when you're going to have a morning shower. Just as you're about to dive into the bathtub, you see a drop of blood in the water you're going to bathe. What still if it is from your own body? So some people start by appreciating the presentation, the face validity. So the moment, and I think I also use the example of ladies, Sister Betty. I find ladies carrying a number of mirrors. You start from the wardrobe mirror, dressing mirror, then mirrors in the handbag. All the time you are looking at yourself in the mirror. Why don't you look at the work before you present it to make sure you take care of all these basic disturbing issues which normally lead to desk rejection. So there is the 7th edition APA, because we are behavioral scientists. It's a book. It is supposed to be read. It's not only for citations and referencing, even academic writing. Chair, I submit.
Thank you very much, Professor Kagari.
Can I say something, Chair?
It's okay. Yes, finally.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sister, for that great work.
We are not hearing.
I've learned a lot. Hello?
Dr. Gideon, I know you are sick. Yeah, I know you are sick, but I can improve it. Yes, you can. You are better now.
Are you hearing me now?
A little bit.
Is it okay now?
Yes, you can proceed.
Okay, it's great work. I'm sure there's a lot of learning. I would like you to look at the current policy, especially now that you know the curriculum is changing, or we have even changed it. Are you looking at those aspects in terms of teachers' job performance, or you are still using the old kind of policy framework to weight the job performance of a teacher? That is what I have in mind of teachers' job performance. Do not ignore the current policy framework we have that is guiding the performance of teachers again. Especially when you look at these indicators, do you see some aspects of competence-based curriculum merging out? If you want to contribute to the current, so would like to say, if you had started from the global perspective of teachers' job performance, then you go to local context. Before we start now hearing your justification for Central Uganda, and you know you're contributing the body of knowledge globally, I think it would really create another good insight. Otherwise, most of the comments I had noted, they have elaborated them. Sister, I thank you. Keep learning. I'm sure you're on the right track. Thank you. I submit.
Chair,
yes,
Chair, I
Professor.
want to request Peter Adoko Obichi to explain his comment in the chat room. Personally, I have not understood it, and I'm sure others will not be able to understand unless he puts fresh on it. He says, don't let a theory inform your variables. And I saw another one. I saw another comment from Lola just slightly after that. And he said, the theory support a relationship. Can Peter Obichi, maybe we may need to debate some of the comments which are put there, because they can actually be misleading if not understood properly. Chair, through you.
Sir, I call upon Peter to come and clarify on his comments. I call upon Peter. Do we still have Peter online? Yes, he's online. Mr. Peter Adoko Obichi, you're online. Please, can you unmute, Peter? Peter, can you unmute and say something? Do you have any challenge of unmuting?
Yeah, let me say this. Well, we give comments. I think at some stage we may have to debate some of the comments being put in there because they can actually be misleading. If a study is a theory based and it has to be anchored in a theory, the ideas, the concepts are picked from there. So the theory actually informs the conceptualization. I'm not saying that, well, if you are testing, you know, we went through theory testing here and the theory development, right? If you are going to test a theory, there is no way you can say that don't let a theory inform your variables. You are testing a theory. So if it is a theory testing study, right, that's what you are doing. Now, if you are developing a theory, right, you'll find these constructs coming from all over the place, but you'll be able to come up with something that is close to a theory so that if it is tested over time, you never know, your work may actually become a theory. And I'll tell you that some of the theories that we use today, they were actually developed by PhD students who did their studies and so forth. And then after doing that, people started citing their work and so forth, and branding those works really as theories over time, and they have improved their work. I'm sure you, James, you can remind me that book where prominent scholars were talking about theory development. I forget, but I would wish every student here to pick that book and read it. James, what is that book? Remind me. You know,
First, Prof, it is by Smith and Heath. The normal Smith and Heath is the HITT. The great minds behind the management of organizations, a theory development process.
Yeah. Thank you very much, James. I think we need to be mindful of that. I know we come from different universities, we've got different, but there are standards about research, and we need to be very careful. And that's why students, you need to, as you pick these comments, again, do some bit of a synthesis about the comments that you take. It's up to you. Debate those comments and take the ones which are appropriate and work with your supervisors. I rest my case. Over to you, Ahmed.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think in the interest of time, it is a very good issue that you brought out, the issue of this, trying to discuss some of these comments and shedding more light. Professor, thank you for shedding light on that comment from Peter. I would now go into the closing. I don't know whether I would request if Dr. Goethe is online, you can give us a comment and also go into the closing session. You finally close it. However, my final comment to Sister is, Sister, the issue of packaging your work is very important. It somehow creates that it turns out creates a negative or brand image if you don't package your work well, and people will have different perceptions. So in our next session we are hosting you, we need to really look at into issues of packaging your work. You may have some of these issues, yes, as you mentioned, but given that they are hidden in 50 slides before you present the problem, 50 slides before you present the problem, then that will be really huge. So my point lastly is please repackage and package yourself well. Thank you very much. Is Dr. Goretti on? Can you are here since, can you give us a comment on the word and finally close the session? Okay. Yes. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Walugembe. I would like to thank all the professors and the doctors and the students that have contributed this morning to improve Betty's work. Sister Betty, thank you for having the guts to present, to have something to be debated on this morning. If you didn't have a presentation, there wouldn't have been anything to comment on. So I encourage even others to come up, present your work so that you receive comments. You have actually received very comprehensive comments on your work. Don't feel that you've not done anything. You have actually done very, very well. And the comments you have received are going to help you improve greatly on your work, right from the small things of presentation. You know, presenting a proposal instead of slides, points, key points. The key points normally tend to get lost when you present too much, when you present the way we are trying to read your proposal on the slideshow. So that is going to be a very good improvement for you to master your work. The conceptualization, the methodology, the justifications that have been pointed out are very important for you to improve on all this. So I would like now, without repeating what everyone has said this morning, we present everything to the Lord for his guidance. Father, Lord, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding given to us, and the continuity of this academic work. We pray that this be beneficial to all of us and support one another, support the students, and make sure that we achieve the intended objectives. In your name we have prayed. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, members. Have a wonderful Sunday. We meet next Sunday.
Enjoy your weekend.
Enjoy your weekend too, Professor.
Thank you. Good weekend, members.
Thank you, Chair.